Working at Starbucks at 38 wasn't easy. Young customers looked at her like, what went wrong in your life? Her coworkers saw her as a failed middle-aged woman. Until that morning, when an armed robbery attempt occurred at the cafe, everyone learned who she really was. Welcome to the Human Stories. Before we begin this powerful story, tell us in the comments which city you're watching from. And if you believe stories like this deserve to be told, hit that subscribe button to support the channel. The Pine Street Starbucks in Seattle was one of the city's busiest cafes, constantly packed from 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. with young professionals, college students, and tourists. And in the middle of this crowd, quietly working, was Sarah Chen. 38-year-old Sarah was the oldest employee at the cafe. The other baristas were typically college students in their 20s. Sarah's attempts to fit in among them sometimes created funny, sometimes sad situations. Customers would look at her differently. Still making coffee at 38? Their expressions seemed to say. Young coworkers would call her Aunt Sarah and whisper behind her back, "I wonder what went wrong in her life." Sarah would pretend not to care about these looks, because nobody knew the truth. When she started this job 6 years ago, she just wanted a peaceful life. She wanted to leave behind her complex, dangerous, stressful past and live a simple life. And working at Starbucks seemed like a perfect choice for that. Every morning, she'd arrive at 6:30, check the machine systems, and prepare for the day. A regular, predictable, safe routine. Exactly what she wanted. But sometimes, especially during busy hours, her old reflexes would kick in. She'd observe every customer, analyze their behavior, identify potentially dangerous situations. But nobody would notice, because Sarah was very careful. She neutralized 3 armed robbers in 45 seconds, without using any weapons. And then someone saw what she had hidden under the coffee machine, a CIA Operative ID card. That Friday morning was busy as usual. Sarah was working at the espresso machine, preparing orders. Next to her worked 22-year-old Jake and 20-year-old Emma. Jake approached Sarah with his usual slightly mocking attitude. "Sarah, if you keep working at this pace, you'll be here until you retire." Emma laughed and said, "Yeah, Aunt Sarah, maybe you should consider other career options." Sarah smiled. "I love it here. It's peaceful." "Peaceful?" Jake was surprised. "How can you be peaceful in such a stressful environment?" Sarah, while handing over an espresso cup, said, "I've worked in more stressful places." "Where? At McDonald's?" Emma joked. Sarah didn't answer, because she couldn't tell the truth. She had worked for the CIA for 12 years, serving in the world's most dangerous places. At 9:15 a.m., the morning rush was at its peak. About 15 customers were waiting in line, everyone impatient and hurried. And that's when something caught Sarah's attention. 3 men sitting in the corner near the cafe entrance. At first, they looked like normal customers, but Sarah's trained eye noticed different details. First, all 3 had arrived at the same time, but were acting like they didn't know each other. Second, their seating positions. All 3 were sitting where they could see the exits, but making it look coincidental. Third, their clothing. The weather was warm, but all 3 were wearing thick jackets. Sarah's heart quickened. During her 6 years of peaceful life, she hadn't encountered such suspicious situations. But her old training was still active. Without getting distracted, she continued working, but her eye was constantly on those 3 men. One of them stood up and walked toward the counter. Sarah moved to the register to get a closer look at him. "Large coffee," the man said. Sarah analyzed his tone, eye movements, hand position. Tense, excited, prepared. "Hot or cold?" Sarah asked. "Doesn't matter," he said. And he looked back, making eye contact with his 2 companions. This was a signal. Sarah understood. These weren't customers. While paying, the man leaned over and whispered to Sarah, "Nobody move. Everything will be over in 2 minutes." Sarah's heart stopped. Robbery. But nobody was aware of this. Jake was making espresso, Emma was organizing the pastry display. Customers were waiting in line. Normal morning routine continued. The man walked toward his companions. Sarah assessed the situation. Option 1, call police. But how long would that take? And what happens meanwhile? Option 2, everyone tries to run. But 15 customers, 3 armed men, panic ensues, someone could get hurt. Option 3, use her old training. But she had left that life behind 6 years ago. That's when one of the men opened his jacket. There was a gun inside. Sarah's decision became clear. She slowly approached Jake. "Jake, do you trust me?" she whispered. "What? Sarah, what are you talking about?" "In 30 seconds, you're going to tell all customers, 'Barista training in progress, please wait 5 minutes.' Then go to the back room." "Sarah, have you lost your mind?" "Jake, please, trust me. Tell Emma too." Jake noticed the seriousness in Sarah's voice. "Okay, but why?" Sarah didn't answer, because now she needed to act. The 3 men had stood up. They were walking toward the counter. Sarah moved behind the espresso machine. That was the cafe's most strategic point. She could both control the exit and calculate possible escape routes. The first man reached the counter. He opened his jacket, showed his gun. "This is a robbery. Everyone stay calm." Panic began. Customers started screaming. Emma froze. Jake looked around in confusion. The second and third man went to control the cafe's exit and back door. Sarah analyzed the situation in 3 seconds. Man 1, at counter, armed, controlling customers. Man 2, at front door, armed, controlling outside. Man 3, going toward the back door, probably armed. Sarah's advantages: knows the place well, can see customer positions, ready to act. Disadvantages: haven't trained for 6 years, 3 against 1. But her biggest advantage? Nobody knew who she was. First step, cut communication. Sarah reached the electrical panel behind the espresso machine. She turned off the main switch. The cafe plunged into darkness. "What's happening?" shouted the first man. Darkness worked in Sarah's favor. For 12 years, she had specialized in night operations. Second step, neutralized targets. The man at the back door was trying to find direction in the darkness. Sarah approached him quietly from behind. CIA training kicked in. With one movement, she knocked the gun from his hand, applied pressure to his neck artery. The man passed out in 10 seconds. 1 down, 2 to go. The man at the front door was panicking. "Hey, why did the lights go out?" The man at the counter was shouting, "Stay calm. Don't move." Sarah approached the second man in the darkness. This man was more alert, scanning his surroundings. Sarah used the cafe's tables and chairs to quietly position herself. The man came very close without noticing her. The second disarmament operation was also successful. The man was lying unconscious on the ground. 2 down, 1 to go. The man at the counter was now panicking. "Where are they? What's happening?" Sarah approached him, but this time she needed to be more careful because the man was among the customers. "Hello," Sarah said in a calm voice. The man, startled, pointed his gun at Sarah. "Who are you?" "I'm just a barista." "But your friends are sleeping right now." He looked around. The other 2 men were nowhere to be seen. What did you do?" "I didn't hurt them. I just put them down for a little rest." He tried to pull the trigger, but Sarah was faster. She reached him in 3 steps, took the gun from his hand, and neutralized him too. 45 seconds. 3 men. None were harmed. Sarah returned to the electrical panel and turned on the lights. When the cafe lit up,
customers looked around in shock. 3 robbers were lying on the ground, unconscious. Jake's mouth hung open. "Sarah, you did that?" Emma was shaking. How were you so fast?" Sarah took a deep breath. Her 6 years of peaceful life had ended. She said, "Call the police." "10 minutes later, police arrived. The 3 robbers were still unconscious, but alive. Police Chief Michael Torres tried to understand the situation. "Did you neutralize these 3 men?" he asked Sarah. "Yes." "How?" Sarah paused. She didn't want to answer this question. "I was lucky." Torres looked suspiciously. "This kind of luck doesn't happen randomly. Who are you?"
Who are you? Sarah looked at Jake and Emma. They were still in shock. "I'm just a barista," she said. But Torres was experienced. "Where did you learn these moves?" Sarah realized she would have to answer. She went under the espresso machine. She pulled out a small box from there. Inside were items she had kept for 6 years. Her old CIA ID card. She showed it to Torres. "I used to work for the CIA." Everyone froze. Jake's breath caught. "CIA? You were an agent?" "I was in operational duty for 12 years, Sarah said. "I retired 6 years ago." Emma asked in amazement, "And you started working at Starbucks?" "I wanted a peaceful life." Torres examined the ID card. Sarah Chen, CIA Operations Officer. Impressive. "In the past," Sarah said. "Now I just make coffee." Torres smiled. "You didn't just make coffee this morning." Customers began looking at Sarah differently. They no longer saw her as a failed middle-aged woman. Jake approached. "Sarah, I'm sorry. For treating you badly." "No need," Sarah said. "You knew me as you knew me." Emma also apologized. "I'm so ashamed that we made fun of you." "It's okay. I really am a 38-year-old barista." Torres said, "But also a life-saving hero." Reporters were starting to arrive. Sarah didn't like this. She turned to Torres. "Please don't let my name get to the media." "Why?" "Because this is my peaceful life. I'm no longer part of that life." Torres made a gesture indicating he understood. But the atmosphere in the cafe had completely changed. Nobody called Sarah Aunt Sarah anymore. Jake and Emma treated her much more respectfully. Customers began to recognize her as retired agent from the CIA. But Sarah was uncomfortable with this. When the evening shift ended, Jake approached her. "Sarah, are you really going to continue working here?" Sarah thought, "I don't know. Everything changed after this morning." "But you can do incredible things. Why are you staying here?" "Because here is safe. Here is peaceful." Emma said, "But you can do bigger things." Sarah smiled. "Emma, do you know, the biggest thing is living a peaceful life." "But your talents?" "I used my talents this morning, and I'll use them again when necessary. But in my daily life, I just want to be Sarah." Jake understood. "So you'll continue staying here?" "For a while longer. But now nobody will underestimate me, right?" she joked. Everyone laughed. The next day, Sarah came at 6:30 as usual. But now everything was different. Customers looked at her with respect. Jake and Emma began to see her as a mentor. And most importantly, Sarah was now comfortable with her identity being revealed. The burden of the secret she had carried for 6 years was gone. One day, Emma asked her, "Sarah, what did you experience at the CIA?" Sarah thought.
Emma, those stories are for another time. Right now, my most important mission is making perfect lattes. Emma smiled. But now we know you're not just a barista. You're right. I'm a barista and former CIA operative. Both. And she continued her work, but she no longer carried the burden of a secret identity. After that morning, Sarah Chen, who worked at Pine Street Starbucks, became the city's most beloved barista, the barista who was a former CIA operative. Customers showed her much more respect. Jake and Emma began to learn a lot from her. But most importantly, Sarah now lived in peace with both her past and present. Sometimes customers would ask her, "Why did you leave the CIA?" Sarah would give this answer: "Because true peace is found not in secret operations, but in ordinary moments." And it really was so. Sarah Chen was now a complete person who embraced both her old identity and her new life. Working at Pine Street Starbucks, former CIA operative Sarah Chen. A woman who could make coffee, save lives, but most importantly, chose to live peacefully. One morning, weeks later, a young college student approached the counter nervously. "Excuse me, are you the barista who stopped the robbery?" Sarah smiled while preparing his order. "I'm the barista who makes really good coffee. What can I get you?" The student grinned. "One large coffee and thank you for making this neighborhood safer." Sarah handed him his drink. "That's what neighbors do. We look out for each other." As the student walked away, Jake looked at Sarah admiringly. "You know, I never thought I'd say this, but you're the coolest person I know." Sarah laughed. "Jake, I make coffee for a living. How is that cool?" "Because," Emma chimed in, "you make coffee and you're a secret agent." "Former secret agent," Sarah corrected. "Now I'm just Sarah who happens to make excellent lattes." But as she said it, her eyes briefly scanned the cafe, checking exits, noting new faces, old habits that would never completely fade. Because some skills once learned become part of who you are. Sarah Chen was living proof that heroes don't always wear capes. Sometimes they wear aprons, serve coffee with a smile, and only reveal their true selves when someone needs saving. And in Seattle, at a busy Starbucks on Pine Street, that was more than enough.